So I wanted to make a video for everybody who was thinking about redoing anything in their house that they wanted to prime and paint. I was doing some kitchen cabinets, and the two products that you're looking at in front of you are both Benjamin Moore products. And I'm redoing my old cabinet doors. We plan on selling the place come summertime, and we don't want to put new kitchen cabinets in. For our size kitchen, you're probably looking at 5,500 to $7,000 depending on the material of the cabinets. So these cabinets were the house. Let me just say the house was built in 1989, and they used melamine oak-looking doors that I'll show you in a minute. So I've been a fan of Benjamin Moore paint since I started using it. I used to use Behr, and it was alright for the price, but paint would chip and wasn't always the best to paint with. So I kind of learned after buying a gallon of Benjamin Moore Regal, the more you spend, the easier it is to paint. Paint just flows good off the brush. It seems to level out super nice, and the stuff always has good adhesion. So I was kind of concerned painting these cabinet doors because the people who originally lived here did the doors with a primer, and then they used not a Benjamin Moore, but a Behr enamel paint, and over time the paint started to swell and get soft from oils on the fingers, different cleaners, from just wiping them off. So I went to Benjamin Moore the other day and I go, hey, what do you guys have here, that I can use to get this project done? And the guy goes, we have Stix primer. I go, alright, because I had been using that 123 Bullseye or Zinsser primer, and I had read somewhere online that they had reformulated it within the last couple of years, and I've noticed that it just doesn't have that good of adhesion anymore. So however they reformulated it, it kind of took away from the adhesion of the primer. So I picked this stuff up. It's a waterborne bonding primer, and I swear it's got a catalyst in it because I make ink for a living, and we use catalysts in different overcoats, and it makes the ink super hard and basically scratch resistant. And this stuff, when you lay it down in a thin coat and you let it dry for an hour or two on this melamine, granted I did scuff it up with 400 grit sandpaper, but it was hard as a rock. I mean, you could take a key to it and the primer would not budge. So, and it has decent opacity. Some of the cabinet doors that I did were maroon, so it was a dark red, and 2 passes gave you a nice white foundation to build off of. The Stix primer that I have here, they say can bond to metal, tile, hard to get good adhesion on, what's the word I'm looking for, projects, I guess. And then I wasn't sure what paint to go with for the kitchen cabinet doors. I know they recommend the Advance, but the guy at the Benjamin Moore store was telling me the problem with the Advance is you really need to leave the doors somewhere for a good week to let the paint dry, but not only dry, to cure, because he goes, the paint will be soft for about a week or two. Now my cabinet doors, the upper ones, it would be fine, but we got kids and a dog, so they're always banging into the lowers, and I was just too nervous of doing that. And I had also seen somebody complain about the Advance almost getting so hard that it became brittle, but it could have just been the adhesion of the ink. They were saying pieces were flaking off or chipping, so I went with the Scuff X. I had watched a couple of videos, people on YouTube. I had never heard of Scuff X until I just happened to come across it watching paint videos, and it was actually pretty impressive how you could almost take a boot and scuff it and then wipe it off. Because my first thought was to use the Benjamin Moore Aurora, which I've used in our bathroom and for our kitchen walls, and that's excellent paint. The Scuff X just seemed to be better suited for the cabinet doors. I guess I'll do a review after like a month or two of use, and we'll see how they seem to be holding up. I wanted to go with a matte, but the guy steered me away from that and had me go with an eggshell. And the reason being, and I get it now that he said it, is that a matte is more porous from the matte particles in it, so you're going to have highs and lows if you were to look at it under a microscope. So all the dirt and grime is going to get embedded into it, and then when you go to wipe it clean, you're not really going to be able to get it out of the pores of the cured paint. So with an eggshell, you have less of that, so it should, that's why they typically say use a semi-gloss for kitchen cabinets, but I didn't want to go that route because it has more build to it, so you have a flatter surface, which essentially is more slick, so you're not going to get any of that stuff building into the pores of the paint. So we'll see how the eggshell goes. Hopefully it's the right call. So just to show you, these are the old kitchen cabinet doors that I'm dealing with. They were an old oak looking melamine. You know, they're 30 years old now, so this is what I was up against, and it's super slick originally, so I took some 400 grit sandpaper and I just lightly scuffed it up. Now I guess you could use a palm sander, but I'd be very careful because you're talking the film layer of this material, you know, is millimeters, so you could end up burning through it and then getting down to the MDF that's inside of it, because this is basically a thin printed sheet that is, I believe, glued on top, or there's an adhesive and pressures applied to it. Super durable stuff. I just wanted to show you guys, I pulled off some of the fronts to the drawers that I had to finish, and I actually just got finished stripping the paint today. I had to do it in my garage, and it was about 25 degrees in there, so I can tell you that wasn't fun. That's why I got kind of everything spread out in my living room right now, so I can get it painted, because it's just way too cold in the garage and I don't have a basement. So as I was saying somewhere in the video, I had used 400 grit sandpaper just to scuff the fronts of these up, and I'll do the back too, since I'm going to paint the front and the back to the drawer fronts. And you're just going to lightly scuff them up with some 400 grit, and this is what I use, 3M. You can pick it up Lowe's, Home Depot, maybe even Walmart. And it's easier if you just fold it over. You can already tell that I ripped a piece off just to make something more manageable. You don't want to try using a whole sheet at once. So you rip a piece off, and you're just lightly going to go in a circular motion, and you'll see that it will make a little bit of dust, so you'll need to wipe that off when you're done. But so here's another step I do. So after the primer is completely dry and hardened up, is I'll take a dish sponge, a brand new one of course. I wouldn't use one of the green ones that's more abrasive. I would take one of these non-scratch dish sponges they call it, and I just go over the top of this, because sometimes you can feel slight imperfections or little bumps, whether that's just the way the paint dried and cured, or if it was little pieces of lint. It's hard to say, but I'll just take this and I'll gently just go over it, and you can feel it hit some of them sometimes, and this will basically just leave a perfectly smooth surface to be painted on, and you're not wearing through it. I mean, maybe if you had a cheaper primer, not putting a ton of pressure on it, but just enough to smush the sponge down and just give it a quick once over. You know, just to make sure that these being melamine and not actual wood where you got wood grain that are nice and sanded, this is super smooth. I mean, any little imperfection is going to show up when it's done. Like the first time they were painted, there was a lot of imperfections. I don't know how they got so much, if they used a crappy roller and it just had a lot of lint in it, or if it was just cheap bear paint or what, but Like I can feel a couple little bumps right there, and you can almost hear them. You know, it's not taking the primer off. So I'll just go over the whole thing. And the key to painting is the prep work. The more prep work you do, and as long as you buy decent rollers, like Purdy's or Woosters or something along those lines, you'll have a good end result. And also getting good paint. I mean, that really makes a difference to the way the coverage, the color's opacity, and good paint, it just flows really well off a brush, levels out, or off a roller. That's why I always recommend Benjamin Moore or Sherwin-Williams. I know people say, well, why don't you use oil-based paint on these? I've only worked with oil-based paint once at work, and you know, I just wanted to go with the Scuff X and give it a try since I'm thinking about doing it on the walls. Sure, there's better options on the Scuff X, but this will do the trick. Here's one that I just painted, a smaller one that was up above the fridge in the kitchen. So that's the opacity after 2 passes. And then here's the opacity after 1 pass, and this is going over maroon, and there's the opacity going over to, I was gonna say twice. And then if you can see right there, that's the color that I was painting over top of, a dark maroon, so it's actually got quite a bit of opacity for doing that. And then I was just using an old dog crate to kind of do this, but here's one that I got done, so it's a white enough surface to be able to put the color that we're going to use of the Scuff X on. But I mean, as you can see, I'm scratching at this and it's not coming off. So if I were to use the 1-2-3 primer that I had a can of in the garage, it probably would have peeled right off. So I have to say, any future projects, I'm going to be using this primer, the Stix by Benjamin Moore, because it truly is the best. And I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 doors so far, front and back. And then out in the kitchen, I did the sides of the cabinets, the frames of the cabinets, and I maybe used a 1/4 gallon. And the one thing that I picked up, never heard of this brand, Wiz, it's like Cabinet Doors and More, little 4-inch roller. I have to say, these things leave a super fine finish, so they really are good for doing cabinets and doors. It says pre-wet for ultimate painting performance. I picked them up at Lowe's. I got that and the roller. Well, I got one roller and one whatever you want to call it that goes on the end, can't think of the word, for like $6. And then I picked up 4 more for I think $5.99 at Lowe's earlier today, just because I liked them so much. But for anybody looking to update their kitchen, you know, and doing it on a budget, I believe the Stix by Benjamin Moore primer was $52 after tax, and then the Scuff X, I'm not sure the original price, the guy gave me 20% off, so it came to like $52 for a gallon. And I don't know if you can really see it that great, but I went with Stonehearth, and then in the kitchen on the walls we used the Hathorn yellow, so they were both in the one book of colors, so thought it would look pretty good. It'll look nice enough to get the house sold over the old maroon, which I got still the drawers to do. But this is how the cabinets looked before. I was never a fan of it. I went through and touched them up once because I found a can of the Bear paint in the garage. So I think it'll look a lot better with the yellow walls in here. Alright, so I finally had time to get the kitchen cabinets finished up over the weekend. Got the drawers reinstalled. So I just want to give some shots of what this turned out like. So before they were the maroon color that you seen earlier in the video, and now they're all completely painted with Stix Primer and then Benjamin Moore Scuff X, which is getting super hard now. The cabinet doors have been done for a week and a day, so that paint is just about cured if it isn't already. Those ones, so it definitely transformed the way the kitchen looked. The kitchen's much brighter now, and I think it looks pretty good with the yellow that we got going on, which was the Hathorn yellow. It was out of one of the Benjamin Moore books, I think the historical line maybe. So overall I'm really pleased. I just want to say I'm not sponsored by Benjamin Moore, by any of these companies. It was just a project I was doing. I got a GoPro and I'm like, well, I'll put a video together so everybody can kind of see for themselves how to go about doing this. It would really help if you could like and subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. Just click the subscribe button, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, just throw them down in the comments section and I'll do my best to answer them. I will come back. We'll give it like a month or two and I'll do a review of how the Scuff X is held up, because I do have 2 young kids and a golden retriever and they're super rough on everything. So the Aurora paint over there has held up fine on the walls. So far I don't see any scuffing from the dog on any of this. Sorry that the lighting's not the best right now. It's like 9 o'clock at night. But yeah, I think they actually came out really good. Put the hardware back on. The one thing I did as well is I labeled each one of these on the back with some masking tape, and I just wrote what drawer was what, just to remember the order they went in, because some are bigger than others. But the one thing I did catch is the guy who originally installed these back when the house was built put these lips upside down, because you look over here and the lips right side up, even though that's not a drawer, and then you look over here, the lips right side up. So it's kind of mismatched, but I don't think anybody really except me will notice. And the only way I noticed is I put them on upside down and I'm like, well, the screws don't line up. I'm like, that's odd. And then I screwed it in anyways, which I should have known better. And the drawers wouldn't all shut. So you live and you learn. Just a word of advice: if you're gonna pull them off, just put some masking tape on the back and just write, all right, you know, I labeled them drawer 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, drawer next to the stove, junk drawer. So yeah, hopefully this can pick up on the finish, but the finish is super smooth. You know, you can still tell it's not gonna make your kitchen look like $1 million kitchen, but it will freshen it up. You know, you can still tell that they're painted. These were obviously the most basic possible doors, you know. And if I had nice oak cabinets, I would never repaint them. I know a lot of people do, but I'm a fan of just seeing traditional wood cabinets in the wood grain. So that's it. Signing out.